For 6 months, Emma Santos lived a life that wasn't hers, without memories, without a past, unaware she was investigating her own crime. For 6 months, Detective Ryan Nash carried the guilt of failing to save Emma Claire, the woman he was secretly in love with. When they meet at a café to discuss the unsolved case, the chemistry is instant and impossible to ignore. But what neither of them knows is that they're falling in love for the second time, and that the man she's beginning to love is the same one who pulled her from the flames the night she was supposed to die.
The first thing Emma remembered was white. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets that smelled like disinfectant and despair. The second thing was pain. Not physical, but a hollow ache where her memories should have been. "You're awake." The nurse's voice was gentle, practiced. "How are you feeling, honey?" Emma tried to speak, but her throat felt like sandpaper. The nurse held a cup of water to her lips, and after a few sips, she managed to croak, "Who am I?" The nurse's smile faltered. "You don't remember? Anything at all?" Emma searched the empty spaces in her mind, finding nothing but black void. "Nothing. I don't remember anything." "The accident was severe," the nurse explained carefully. "Head trauma," they said. "You've been in a coma for 2 weeks. When they brought you in, you had no identification. No one claimed you." She paused. "We've been calling you Jane Doe." Jane Doe? Like she was nobody. Nothing. What about family? Friends? Someone must be looking for me. The nurse's expression grew pity-soft. "Honey, we've had your picture in the papers, on the news. No one's come forward. I'm sorry." The doctor who examined her later was more clinical, but equally puzzling. "Retrograde amnesia," he explained, shining a light in her eyes. "Could be temporary, could be permanent. Your brain is protecting itself from trauma." "What kind of trauma?" "The accident was violent. You're lucky to be alive." But Emma didn't feel lucky. She felt like a ghost haunting someone else's life. 6 months later, Emma Santos, the name she'd chosen from a baby book and a random street sign, sat in her tiny studio apartment, staring at her laptop screen. The freelance journalism work paid barely enough to survive, but it gave her flexibility to chase the one story that mattered, herself. She'd been methodically searching for any trace of her former identity: missing persons reports, accident records, hospital admissions from 6 months ago. Nothing matched her description or the timing of her supposed accident. It was like she'd materialized from thin air. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday evening when she was researching cold cases for a legitimate assignment. She'd typed "Unsolved Murders Chicago 6 months" into the search bar, looking for story angles. The headline made her blood freeze. "Local teacher Emma Claire found dead in apparent home invasion." Emma stared at the screen, her hands shaking. The victim's photo stared back at her. Same face, same eyes, same small scar above the left eyebrow that Emma touched every morning in the mirror. According to the article, Emma Claire, 28, elementary school teacher, had been found dead in her apartment 6 months ago. Brutal murder, the scene ransacked, the killer never found. But that was impossible. Emma was alive. She was sitting right here, reading about her own death. Unless... Emma's mind raced through the possibilities. Mistaken identity? A doppelganger? Or something more sinister? Had someone wanted Emma Claire dead badly enough to fake her murder? She clicked through article after article, absorbing details about a life she couldn't remember. Emma Claire had been beloved by her students, lived alone, had no close family. The police had few leads and no suspects. One name appeared repeatedly: Detective Ryan Nash, the lead investigator who'd promised the media he wouldn't rest until Emma Claire's killer was found. Emma stared at his photo in the news articles. Sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, the kind of face that suggested he kept his promises. He looked tired, haunted by the case he couldn't solve. "He doesn't know I'm alive," Emma realized. No one knows. The question was, why? Who had wanted Emma Claire dead, and why had they let Emma Santos live? The next morning, Emma stood outside the Chicago Police Department, her press credentials clipped to a black blazer she'd bought specifically for this moment. She'd crafted the perfect cover story, freelance journalist writing about the emotional toll of unsolved cases on the detectives who work them. Detective Nash? She approached the tired-looking man coming out of the elevator. Up close, he was even more striking than his photos suggested. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to see everything. Depends who's asking. Emma Santos, freelance journalist. She extended her hand, noting how his calloused fingers engulfed hers. I'm writing a piece about cold cases and their impact on investigators. I was hoping we could talk about the Emma Claire murder. Something flickered across his face. Pain, frustration, something deeper. That case is still active. It's been 6 months with no arrests. The media's calling it cold. The media doesn't know shit. His voice was sharp, defensive. Emma studied his reaction. This wasn't just professional dedication, this was personal. Detective Nash, I'm not trying to criticize your work. I'm trying to understand how it feels to carry these cases with you, to live with the victims' faces in your head. Ryan was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those intense eyes. Emma felt exposed, like he could see through her journalist facade to the desperate woman searching for her own truth. Coffee, he said finally. There's a place across the street, 1 hour, and you pay. The coffee shop was cramped and loud, but Emma barely noticed. Sitting across from Ryan Nash, she felt an unexpected pull. Professional curiosity mixed with something warmer, more dangerous. Tell me about Emma Claire, she said, her notepad ready. Ryan's jaw tightened. What do you want to know? What made this case different? You've worked dozens of homicides, but this one, it's eating at you. How would you know what's eating at me? Because you've been working it on your own time for 6 months. Because you look like you haven't slept since the day her body was found. Because you're here talking to a journalist instead of telling me to go to hell. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're observant. It's my job. So what is it about Emma Claire? Ryan stared into his coffee cup like it held answers. Everything about that scene was wrong. Too clean, too convenient, like someone staged it. Staged how? The killer supposedly ransacked the apartment looking for valuables, but they left behind jewelry, cash, electronics. They broke in through a window, but didn't track in any dirt from the fire escape. The murder weapon was wiped clean, but left right beside the body. Emma's heart pounded. What kind of weapon? Kitchen knife, from her own set. Ryan looked up at her. But here's the thing. Emma Claire was terrified of knives, had a phobia since childhood. Her friends said she ordered takeout rather than cook because she couldn't handle using sharp objects. So the killer either didn't know that or they wanted us to think it was a random break-in when it was something else entirely. Emma felt pieces clicking together in her mind. What do you think really happened? Ryan was quiet for so long that Emma thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I think Emma Claire discovered something she shouldn't have. I think someone wanted her dead and made it look like a burglary gone wrong. And I think, he paused, looking directly into Emma's eyes, I think she might still be alive. Emma's blood turned to ice. What? The body was burned almost beyond recognition. DNA was inconclusive due to the fire damage. The medical examiner's report had inconsistencies. Ryan leaned forward. What if Emma Claire escaped? What if someone wanted everyone to think she was dead? Emma struggled to keep her expression neutral while her world tilted off its axis. That's quite a theory. It's more than a theory. It's hope. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. Because if she's alive, if she's out there somewhere, I can still save her. The intensity in his voice, the raw emotion, hit Emma like a physical blow. This man was in love with a dead woman, a woman who was sitting right across from him, and he had no idea. Why does saving her matter so much to you? Emma asked, her voice barely steady. Ryan met her eyes, and for a moment, Emma saw straight into his soul. Because I loved her. I was going to tell her that the night she died. The coffee shop spun around Emma. She gripped the table edge, fighting nausea and vertigo. Are you okay? Ryan's voice seemed to come from far away. Fine, just, this is a powerful story.
Emma forced herself to breathe normally. "Detective Nash, thank you for your time. I think I have everything I need. You look pale. Let me drive you." "No," Emma stood quickly, gathering her things. "Thank you, but I can manage." She fled the coffee shop before Ryan could respond, her mind reeling with impossible truths.
The detective hunting her killer was in love with her. The man she was inexplicably drawn to was mourning her death while she sat 3 feet away, alive and desperate to remember why someone had wanted her dead. And now she had to figure out how to investigate her own murder while falling for the man who was already in love with her ghost. Some mysteries, Emma realized, were more dangerous than others. Emma's hands shook as she unlocked her apartment door. Ryan's words echoed in her head. I loved her. I was going to tell her that the night she died. She pulled up every article about Emma Claire's murder, studying crime scene photos that should have been familiar but felt like looking at a stranger's life. The apartment in the photos was cozy, filled with plants and children's artwork, the home of someone who loved teaching, loved life. The victim had been found in the bedroom, burned beyond recognition. But Ryan was right. Something felt staged about the scene. Emma found the original missing person report filed 3 days before the murder. Emma Claire had failed to show up for work, missed appointments, didn't answer calls. Then suddenly she was dead. But what if she wasn't? What if someone had helped Emma Claire disappear and created the crime scene to convince everyone she was gone? Emma stared at her reflection in the dark window. Same face as the dead woman, same scar, same eyes, but no memories of the life everyone said she'd lived. What did you discover, Emma Claire? What were you going to tell Ryan Nash? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emma Santos? Speaking. This is Detective Nash. I wanted to apologize if I came on too strong today. Sometimes this case makes me... He paused. Would you like to continue the interview tomorrow? I think I have more to share. Emma's heart raced. Of course. Same place? Actually, I'd like to show you the crime scene. If you're writing about unsolved cases, seeing where it happened might help. The crime scene, where Emma Claire supposedly died, where Emma Santos might finally find answers. Tomorrow at 10? I'll pick you up. What's your address? Emma hesitated. Giving him her address felt dangerous, not because she feared Ryan, but because every instinct screamed that getting closer to him was playing with fire. The coffee shop is fine. I'll meet you there. After hanging up, Emma stared at the articles spread across her laptop screen. Tomorrow, she'd see the place where she'd allegedly been murdered. Tomorrow, she'd stand beside the man who loved her without knowing she was alive. And maybe, finally, she'd start remembering why someone had wanted Emma Claire dead badly enough to fake her murder. But as she drifted off to sleep, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that remembering might be the most dangerous thing she could do. Ryan Nash hadn't slept properly in 6 months. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma Claire's crime scene. The staged brutality, the convenient evidence, the burning smell that had masked any real forensic traces. He sat in his car outside the coffee shop, watching Emma Santos through the window. Something about her nagged at him. The way she'd reacted yesterday when he mentioned Emma Claire might still be alive, how she'd gone pale and fled. Maybe it was just good journalism instincts. Or maybe it was something else. Emma emerged from the coffee shop looking nervous but determined. She wore jeans and a dark jacket, her hair pulled back, and Ryan felt that familiar tug of attraction that he'd been trying to ignore since yesterday. "Ready?" he asked as she got in the passenger seat. "As ready as anyone can be to visit a murder scene." Ryan studied her profile as they drove. "You seem personally invested in this story. All good stories require personal investment. Is that what this is? A story?" Emma was quiet for a moment. What else would it be? A chance to finally solve the case that's destroying me, Ryan thought. A chance to find the woman I never got to save. But he didn't say that. Instead, he drove through Chicago traffic toward the apartment building that haunted his dreams. "Tell me about her," Emma said suddenly. "Emma Claire, what was she like?" Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Why?"
Context for the article, the human element. She was, Ryan paused, searching for words, kind. The kind of person who remembered every student's birthday, who stayed late to help struggling kids. She saw the best in everyone. Even in you? The question caught him off guard. What makes you think I needed someone to see the best in me? Experience. Cops who work cold cases in their spare time usually have something to prove. Ryan glanced at her, impressed despite himself. You really are observant. So, did she see the best in you? I never got the chance to find out. Ryan's voice was rough. We'd been circling each other for months. Coffee after her statements, long conversations about nothing important. I was building up the courage to ask her out when she died. When someone took that choice away from both of us. They pulled up to the apartment building, a modest brick structure in a safe neighborhood. Ryan had been here dozens of times, always hoping to spot something the crime scene team had missed. "Third floor," he said as they climbed the stairs. "Apartment 3B. Emma followed him down the hallway, her breathing growing shallow. When Ryan stopped at the door marked 3B, now sealed with police tape, Emma gripped the wall for support. "You okay?" Ryan asked. This is more intense than I expected." Ryan unlocked the door and they stepped inside. The apartment was exactly as it had been 6 months ago. Furniture askew, drawers pulled out, personal items scattered across the floor. But Emma wasn't looking at the staged destruction. She was staring at the photographs on the mantel, the books on the shelves, the coffee mug still sitting on the kitchen counter. "I know this place," her mind whispered. "I've been here before." "The bedroom is where we found the body," Ryan said, but Emma was already walking toward it like she was following a familiar path. The bedroom felt different, empty, wrong. Emma touched the doorframe, and suddenly she could smell smoke, hear shouting, feel hands grabbing her, pulling her away. "Emma?" Ryan's voice seemed to come from far away. "Emma, are you okay?" She realized he was calling her by name, the wrong name, but somehow it felt right when he said it. "I'm fine, just the atmosphere is overwhelming. Maybe we should go." "No." Emma forced herself to focus. "Show me what bothered you about the crime scene." Ryan began pointing out inconsistencies, the lack of defensive wounds, the missing personal items that a burglar would have taken, the way the fire had burned too evenly to be accidental. "But the thing that bothers me most," he said, moving to the window, "is this." Emma joined him, standing close enough to smell his cologne, something warm and familiar that made her chest tighten. "The fire escape," Ryan continued, "supposedly the killer's entry point, but look." Emma followed his gaze to the pristine metal steps, the undisturbed dirt on the windowsill. "No one came through here," she said, which means Emma Claire either let her killer in willingly or she was never killed here at all. Ryan turned to look at her, and suddenly they were standing very close, his dark eyes searching her face. "You understand," he said softly. "You see what I see. I see a man who won't give up on someone he cares about. Even if she's dead," Emma's heart pounded, "even if she's not." The moment stretched between them, charged with tension neither fully understood. Ryan's hand came up to touch her cheek, and Emma felt her breath catch. "Emma," he whispered, and she didn't know which Emma he was talking to. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. Ryan stepped back, answering with a sharp "Nash?" Emma used the interruption to steady herself. Being here, being close to Ryan, was triggering something. Memories, emotions, recognition that felt dangerous. "We need to go," Ryan said, hanging up. "There's been a development in another case." As they left the apartment, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving behind more than just a crime scene. She was leaving behind pieces of herself, fragments of a life she was only beginning to remember. And Ryan Nash, the man who loved her ghost, was becoming more dangerous to her heart with every passing moment. 3 days later, Emma found herself in Ryan's favorite diner at 2 a.m., sharing coffee and pie while he worked through case files.
It had become their routine, late-night meetings under the guise of her research, but really because neither could stay away.
"You don't sleep much," Emma observed, watching him review witness statements for the 100th time. "Sleep is overrated." Ryan looked up from the files. "Besides, the best conversations happen after midnight." "Is that your professional opinion, detective?" "Personal experience." His smile was tired but genuine. Emma Claire used to say the same thing. Emma's chest tightened at the mention of her other self. "You think about her a lot." "Every day." Ryan's honesty was brutal, probably not healthy for someone trying to move on. "Who says you have to move on?" "My partner, my captain, my therapist." Ryan laughed without humor. "Everyone except the voice in my head that says she's still out there somewhere." Emma stirred her coffee, choosing her words carefully. What if that voice is right? What if she survived somehow? Then she's either hiding from whoever tried to kill her, or, Ryan paused, or she doesn't remember. Head trauma, shock, there are cases of people just disappearing into new lives. Emma felt exposed, like Ryan could see straight through her. That would be convenient for someone trying to stay hidden. It would also be torture for someone trying to find her. Their eyes met across the table, and Emma felt that familiar pull, attraction mixed with recognition, mixed with the dangerous thrill of secrets. "Ryan," she started, then stopped. What could she say? That she was the woman he was mourning? That every time he talked about loving Emma Claire, her heart broke a little more? What? Nothing. Just, "You're a good man for not giving up." Ryan reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The contact sent electricity up Emma's arm. "You're easy to talk to, Emma Santos. Easier than I've found anyone to be in a long time." "Even easier than Emma Claire?" "Different." Ryan's thumb traced across her knuckles. Emma Claire was light, hope, everything good about the world wrapped up in one person. And I'm complicated, mysterious, the kind of woman who asks hard questions and doesn't accept easy answers. Emma felt her pulse quicken under his touch. "Which do you prefer?" "I'm beginning to think that's a dangerous question." The diner around them faded away. There was only Ryan's hand on hers, his dark eyes searching her face, the unspoken tension crackling between them. "Emma," he said quietly, and she realized he was leaning closer. "Which, Emma?" she whispered. "Both. Neither. I don't know anymore." When he kissed her, it was soft, tentative, like he was afraid she might disappear. Emma melted into him, 6 months of loneliness and confusion pouring into the connection between them. He tasted like coffee and promises, like everything she'd been missing without knowing it. When they broke apart, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. "This is complicated. Everything worth having is complicated." "Emma Santos?" "Yes? I think I'm falling for you. And I don't know if that makes me a terrible person or just a confused one." Emma's heart shattered and soared simultaneously. He was falling for her, just not the version of her he thought he was kissing. "What if I told you it was okay to fall? What if I told you I'm terrified of what that means?" "Then I'd say fear is just excitement wearing the wrong outfit." Ryan laughed, the sound lighter than anything she'd heard from him. "Where did you learn to be so wise?" "From forgetting everything and having to learn how to live all over again," Emma thought. But what she said was, "trial by fire." As they left the diner together, Ryan's hand found hers naturally. Walking through empty Chicago streets at 3 a.m., Emma felt more alive than she had since waking up in that hospital bed. But she also felt the weight of the lie she was living. Every moment with Ryan was borrowed time, stolen from the truth that would either save them both or destroy everything they were building. "Emma," Ryan said as they reached her apartment building. "Yes. Tomorrow night, let me take you somewhere that isn't about work or cases or death, somewhere we can just be us." Emma looked into his face, hopeful, vulnerable, beautiful in the streetlight glow. "I'd like that." After he left, Emma stood in her apartment, touching her lips where he'd kissed her. She was falling in love with a man who was in love with her ghost.
And tomorrow, she'd have to decide whether to keep living the lie or risk everything by telling him the truth. Some secrets, Emma was learning, became heavier the longer you carried them, but some secrets were all that stood between love and destruction. Emma woke up screaming. The nightmare had been vivid, real, hands grabbing her, a voice saying she knows too much, the smell of gasoline, fire, someone pulling her from flames while she fought to stay conscious. She sat up in bed, heart hammering, and realized it wasn't a nightmare. It was a memory. The images came in fragments throughout the day. A manila folder hidden behind books, financial records that didn't match, a conversation overheard through thin walls, someone saying Nash is getting too close. By afternoon, Emma couldn't concentrate on work. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at the scar above her eyebrow, not from the car accident the hospital assumed, but from something else, something violent. Her phone rang. Ryan, hey, about tonight? Ryan, I need to ask you something. The night Emma Claire disappeared, what was she working on? Any special projects? Silence. Why? For the article, I'm trying to understand what might have made her a target. Emma, this is starting to feel less like journalism and more like personal investigation. He was getting suspicious. Emma forced her voice to stay steady. I'm thorough. It's what makes me good at my job. She was tutoring kids after school, volunteer work, nothing that would make anyone want to hurt her. What about her personal life? Was she investigating anything? Looking into something that concerned her? Emma Santos, you're starting to sound like a cop. Just answer the question. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. There was something. The week before she disappeared, she asked me about financial crimes, how to report suspicious activity. She seemed worried about something at work. Emma's heart raced. What kind of suspicious activity? She wouldn't say, just asked hypothetical questions about whistleblower protection, what happened to people who reported corruption. And you didn't think that was relevant to her murder? I did. I investigated every angle. The school, her coworkers, the administration. Everything was clean. Emma closed her eyes, trying to force more memories to surface. Ryan, I need to cancel tonight. What? Why? I need time to process some things. This story is getting complicated. Emma, talk to me. What's going on? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Emma's voice cracked. I just need space to think. Don't do this. Don't shut me out. I'm not shutting you out. I'm trying to protect both of us. From what? From the truth that's going to destroy us, Emma thought. From making mistakes we can't take back. After she hung up, Emma sat on her floor, surrounded by printouts and notes, trying to piece together Emma Claire's final days. The woman had discovered something worth killing for, something connected to her work at Lincoln Elementary. Emma grabbed her laptop and started researching the school's finances, board members, recent changes in administration. She was 3 hours deep in public records when she found it, a $2.3 million discrepancy in the school district's budget. Federal funds allocated for special needs programs that had been redirected to construction contracts. Construction contracts awarded to companies owned by school board members. Emma Claire hadn't just stumbled onto financial irregularities. She'd uncovered a massive embezzlement scheme involving school officials, construction companies, and city contracts. And she'd been murdered to keep her quiet. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Can't stop thinking about last night. Whatever you're scared of, we can face it together. Emma stared at the message, her heart breaking. He thought she was pulling away because of their kiss, because of feelings getting complicated. He had no idea she was the dead woman he'd been mourning for 6 months. She typed back, "Some things are too dangerous to face together. Try me." Emma looked at her research, at the evidence of corruption that had gotten Emma Claire killed, at the web of lies she was living. Not yet. Give me time. How much time? I don't know. Her phone rang immediately. Emma, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. We all should be. What does that mean? Emma closed her eyes. It means I think I know why Emma Claire died. And if I'm right, we're both in danger. Then come to me. Let me protect you. "You can't protect me from this, Ryan. No one can." But even as she said it, Emma realized that wasn't true. Someone had protected her once already. Someone had pulled her from that fire, given her a new identity, let the world think she was dead. The question was, who? And why hadn't they contacted her since? As night fell and Emma sat alone with her dangerous discoveries, she wondered if staying hidden was really protection or just another kind of prison. Either way, her time as Emma Santos was running out. The memories were returning, whether she wanted them or not, and with them came the terrifying knowledge that whoever had tried to kill Emma Claire was still out there, still powerful, still dangerous, still looking for her. Emma couldn't sleep. Every shadow outside her window looked like a threat. Every car engine sounded like someone coming for her. The corruption she'd uncovered went deeper than school board embezzlement. It connected to city contracts, police department funding, construction projects worth tens of millions. At 3 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. "Emma Claire is dead. Keep it that way if you want to stay alive." The line went dead. Emma's hands shook as she checked her locks, drew the curtains, tried to convince herself it was just a prank call. But the voice had known her real name. The next morning brought worse news. The Lincoln Elementary principal, Dr. Margaret Foster, had been found dead in her home. Apparent suicide, the news reported. But Emma remembered Dr. Foster from the school records. She'd been the one signing off on the fraudulent contracts. Their cleaning house, Emma realized, eliminating anyone who knew about the embezzlement. Her laptop chimed with an email from an encrypted address. "Stop digging or join your friend Foster. This is your only warning." Emma stared at the message, terror and determination warring in her chest. They knew she was investigating. They knew who she was. But they also seemed to think she could still be scared off, which meant they didn't know how much she'd already discovered. Her phone buzzed. Ryan. "Emma, where are you? I've been calling all morning." "I'm okay, just working on the story." "About that, there's been a development. Dr. Foster from Lincoln Elementary died last night." "I saw the news. Suicide?" "That's what it looks like. But Emma, I need to ask you something. Have you been investigating Lincoln Elementary?" Emma's blood chilled. "Why?" "Because someone called in an anonymous tip this morning, said a journalist named Emma Santos had been asking questions about the school's finances. They're turning Ryan against me," Emma realized, "making me look suspicious." "Ryan, I can explain." "I'm coming over. Don't go anywhere." Emma hung up and immediately started gathering her research. If they were targeting her openly now, staying in her apartment was suicide. She needed to disappear, regroup, figure out who was hunting her. But where could she go? She had no family, no close friends, no one she could trust except Ryan, the man who loved her without knowing who she was, the man who was now being told she might be connected to a murder. 20 minutes later, Ryan's knock echoed through her apartment. Emma opened the door to find him looking grim, official, no longer the man who'd kissed her 2 nights ago. "Detective Nash." She kept her voice neutral. "Miss Santos, may I come in?" The formality cut deep, but Emma stepped aside. Ryan entered, taking in the papers scattered across her coffee table, the packed bag by the door. "Going somewhere?" "Research trip." "About Lincoln Elementary?" Emma met his eyes. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me you were investigating the school?" "Because I knew you'd try to stop me." "You're damn right I would have." Ryan's voice was sharp. "Emma, Dr. Foster is dead. Someone called in your name specifically. You're either in serious danger or seriously involved. Which do you think?" Ryan studied her face, and Emma saw the moment his detective instincts warred with his feelings for her. "I think," he said slowly, "that Emma Santos is hiding something big, and I think it's connected to Emma Claire's murder." Emma's heart stopped. "What makes you say that?" "Because you ask the right questions. Because you understand the case like someone who lived it. Because every time I mention Emma Claire, you look like you're in pain. Ryan," and Ryan stepped closer, his voice dropping, "you have the same scar above your left eyebrow that Emma Claire had, the one that wasn't in any of the news reports." Emma felt the world tilt. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me." Ryan's voice was quiet. Dangerous. I've been a cop for 12 years. I notice details. Lots of people have scars. Emma. Ryan reached out, touching the mark above her eyebrow with gentle fingers. I kissed this scar 6 months ago, the night before you supposedly died. The admission hung between them like a bomb. Emma stared at him, her carefully constructed world crashing down. You knew, she whispered. I suspected. Tonight confirmed it. How long? Since the day you walked into the station. Same voice, same mannerisms, same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. Ryan's thumb traced her cheekbone. I've been in love with you for 8 months. You think I wouldn't recognize you without makeup and 6 months of fear? Emma felt tears building. Then why didn't you say anything? Because someone tried to kill you once already. Because whoever did it is still out there. Because the only thing keeping you safe was everyone believing you were dead. So you've been lying to me too? I've been protecting you. There's a difference. Emma pulled away from his touch. By letting me think I was going crazy? By letting me fall in love with you while I thought you were mourning someone else? By keeping you alive long enough to figure out who wants you dead? The truth of it hit Emma like a physical blow. Ryan hadn't been the grieving detective obsessed with a cold case. He'd been the man protecting the woman he loved, even from herself. The car accident, she said suddenly. There was no car accident. House fire. I pulled you out myself, got you to a hospital under a Jane Doe admission. You had smoke inhalation, head trauma, severe burns on your hands. Emma looked down at her palms, seeing faded scars she'd attributed to childhood accidents. Why don't I remember? Because forgetting was your brain's way of protecting itself, and because some memories are too dangerous to keep. Emma sank onto her couch, overwhelmed. So you know who tried to kill me? Ryan sat beside her, careful not to touch. I know it's connected to the school embezzlement. I know it goes higher than we originally thought. And I know that investigating it got Dr. Foster killed. Then we stop them. We? Emma looked at him, the man who'd saved her life, protected her identity, let her believe he was a stranger rather than risk her safety. You've been protecting me for 6 months. Now let me help you finish this. Emma, it's too dangerous. My name is Emma Claire Rodriguez, she said firmly. I was a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. Someone tried to murder me because I discovered they were stealing from special needs children, and I'm done hiding. Ryan's expression shifted from protection to admiration. You remember. Enough. And I remember why I fell in love with you the first time. What's that? Because you're the kind of man who saves people, even when it costs you everything. When Ryan kissed her this time, it tasted like truth and second chances and coming home after being lost. But outside Emma's apartment, a car sat in the shadows, and someone made a phone call that would change everything. She remembers, and Nash knows. It's time to clean this up permanently. The attack came at dawn. Emma woke to the sound of glass breaking and Ryan pushing her toward the fire escape. Go, now. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. Go. Emma heard footsteps pounding up the stairs, voices coordinating the assault. She grabbed the research files and climbed out the window as Ryan positioned himself at her apartment door, gun drawn. 3 floors down, Emma crouched behind a dumpster, listening to shouts and gunfire from above. Her heart hammered as she realized the scope of what they were facing. This wasn't random violence. This was a coordinated hit. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ryan. Safe house, 1247 Oak Street, back entrance. Go now. Emma ran through empty morning streets, clutching the evidence that had made her a target twice. The safe house was a modest bungalow in a residential neighborhood. She used the key hidden under a loose brick, just like Ryan's text instructed. Inside, she found surveillance equipment, case files, and photos of her from the past 6 months, taken without her knowledge, documenting her every move. Jesus, she whispered, understanding the magnitude of Ryan's protection efforts. 20 minutes later, Ryan appeared through the back door, blood on his sleeve, but alive. Are you hurt? Emma rushed to him. Flesh wound, they're gone. Ryan pulled her into his arms. But Emma, this changes everything. They're not trying to scare you anymore. They're trying to kill you.
Who's they? Ryan moved to a wall covered with surveillance photos and organizational charts. School board members, construction executives, and at least 3 cops in my own department. Emma stared at the web of corruption Ryan had been mapping. How long have you known? Suspected for months. Confirmed yesterday when I mentioned your investigation to my captain, and suddenly we had armed men at your apartment. Your captain is involved? Captain Morrison has been taking payments from Meridian Construction for 2 years, along with Detective Barnes and Sergeant Kelly. Emma felt sick. The police who investigated my murder were all bought and paid for. The crime scene was staged by people who knew exactly how to make evidence disappear. And you've been investigating alone this whole time? Ryan nodded grimly, because I didn't know who else to trust. The corruption goes all the way up to the mayor's office. Emma studied the files, pieces clicking together in her memory. I remember more now. The night before the fire, I'd arranged to meet someone, a journalist, who said they could help expose the embezzlement. Who? I don't remember the name, but they knew about the missing federal funds, about the construction contracts. They said they had other evidence, other victims. Ryan's expression darkened. Emma, that could have been a setup. Someone could have used a fake journalist identity to lure you out. Or it could have been someone trying to help. Either way, that meeting never happened because someone tried to burn me alive first. Emma's phone rang. Unknown number again. Don't answer, Ryan started. Hello? Ms. Rodriguez? Or do you prefer Miss Santos these days? The voice was different from the previous calls. Older, more cultured, completely confident. Who is this? Someone who's been very patient with your little investigation, but patience has limits. Ryan gestured for her to keep the caller talking while he traced the number. What do you want? For you to disappear. Again, permanently this time. And if I refuse, then Detective Nash joins Dr. Foster in the obituaries, along with anyone else who's helped you. Emma's blood chilled. You don't have to hurt anyone. This is between you and me. On the contrary, Miss Rodriguez, this is between you and a very powerful group of people who've invested considerable resources in keeping certain information buried. The embezzlement? The embezzlement is just the beginning. Lincoln Elementary was a test case. We've been redirecting federal education funds across 12 states for 5 years, hundreds of millions of dollars. Emma felt dizzy. This wasn't just local corruption, it was a national conspiracy. What do you want from me? Meet us tonight, Millennium Park, the Crown Fountain, 10 p.m. Come alone, bring all your research, and we'll make this quick. And if I don't, then we'll make it slow, and we'll start with Detective Nash. The line went dead. Emma stared at Ryan, who was shaking his head. Absolutely not. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap, but they have a point. If I don't end this, they'll keep killing people. We'll find another way. There is no other way, Emma's voice cracked. Ryan, they've been stealing money meant for disabled children. They've killed at least 2 people that we know of. They have cops on their payroll and connections that go to federal levels. So we go to the FBI. With what? Circumstantial evidence and a dead principal? They'll bury this and us with it. Ryan pulled her close. I won't lose you again. You won't. But I won't let them destroy more lives either. Emma looked at the man who'd saved her, protected her, loved her through 2 identities. Ryan, I need you to trust me. What are you planning? To end this, tonight, but not the way they expect. As Emma began outlining her plan, Ryan realized that the woman he'd fallen in love with twice was about to risk everything to save people she'd never met. And despite every instinct screaming at him to stop her, he knew she was right. Some fights were worth dying for, but this one, they were going to win. You're insane if you think I'm letting you walk into that park alone, Ryan said, checking his service weapon for the 3rd time. I won't be alone. You'll be watching from the surveillance van, 50 yards away while you face down killers. That's not protection, Emma. That's suicide. Emma strapped on the wire Ryan had insisted she wear. It's justice, and it's the only way to get them to confess on record.
They'd spent the afternoon coordinating with FBI agent Sarah Chen, the one federal contact Ryan trusted completely. The plan was simple: get the conspirators talking, record everything, and pray backup arrived before things went sideways. Emma, Ryan caught her hand as she headed for the door. There's something I need to tell you. Before tonight, in case, don't say goodbye like we're not both walking away from this. I love you, both versions of you. Emma Claire, Emma Santos, doesn't matter what name you use. I love the teacher who fought for her students and the journalist who won't back down from the truth. Emma kissed him hard, pouring 6 months of confusion and fear and desperate love into the connection between them. I love you too. Now let's go catch some bad guys. Millennium Park at night was eerily quiet. Emma sat on a bench near Crown Fountain, the research files in a messenger bag beside her, trying to look calm while her heart hammered against her ribs. At exactly 10 p.m., 3 figures approached from different directions. She recognized Captain Morrison immediately, Ryan's own boss, the man who'd been covering up her investigation from the beginning. Ms. Rodriguez, you're looking well for a dead woman. Captain Morrison, you're looking guilty for an innocent man. Morrison smiled coldly. Still the smart mouth that got you in trouble before. Actually, what got me in trouble was discovering you've been stealing federal money meant for special needs children. That tends to upset people. Only people who don't understand how the world really works. The second figure stepped into the light, a woman in an expensive suit who looked like she'd never set foot in a public school. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Patricia Valdez, Director of Federal Education Funding for the Midwest region. We need to discuss your findings. You mean the findings that show you've been redirecting millions in special education funds to fake construction projects? I prefer to think of it as reallocating resources to more flexible uses. Emma felt sick. Flexible uses like your personal bank accounts? The third figure finally emerged from the shadows, an older man with cold eyes and the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute power. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Senator James Whitmore, and I'm here to offer you a choice. Emma's blood turned to ice. A sitting U.S. senator was part of this conspiracy? What kind of choice? A very simple one. You can accept a generous relocation package, new identity, new life, very comfortable living arrangement somewhere far from Chicago, and forget everything you think you know. Or you can join Dr. Foster and the other idealists who thought they could fight the system. In her earpiece, Emma heard Ryan's voice. FBI is in position. Keep them talking. How many others? Emma asked. How many people have you killed to keep this quiet? Fewer than you'd think. Most people can be bought. It's only the true believers like you who cause problems. True believers in what? Not stealing from disabled children? Senator Whitmore laughed. Ms. Rodriguez, you have no idea how the world works. Those federal education funds were never going to reach the children anyway. Government bureaucracy would have wasted 90% of it. We simply streamlined the process. Into your pockets. Into more productive uses. Economic development, job creation, political influence that benefits everyone. Everyone except the children who needed those services. Morrison stepped closer. Those children were lost causes anyway. We redirected that money to winners. Emma felt rage building in her chest. Winners like yourselves? Winners like America, Miss Rodriguez. Strong leadership, efficient resource allocation, profitable partnerships. You mean corruption, theft, and murder? I mean pragmatism, Senator Whitmore said coldly. Now, what's your decision? Emma looked at the 3 people who'd destroyed lives for profit, who tried to kill her twice, who were standing here calmly discussing more murder. My decision, Emma said, standing up slowly, is to tell you all to go to hell. Morrison's hand moved toward his weapon. I was hoping you'd say that. I wouldn't, Emma said calmly, not unless you want to explain to a federal judge why you're reaching for a gun while confessing to embezzlement and murder on tape. Morrison froze. What tape? The one that's been recording this entire conversation. The one being transmitted live to FBI agents positioned around this park. The one that just captured a sitting U.S. senator admitting to conspiracy, theft, and multiple homicides. Senator Whitmore's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Agent Chen," Emma spoke clearly toward her wire, "I think you have enough." Floodlights blazed to life around the park as FBI agents emerged from concealment. "Federal agents, nobody move." In the chaos that followed, shouting, weapons drawn, the conspiracy members realizing they'd been completely outmaneuvered, Emma felt a hand grab her arm. Morrison, desperate and panicked, dragged her backward toward the fountain. "You stupid bitch, you have no idea what you've done." "I've done exactly what Emma Claire Rodriguez set out to do 6 months ago," Emma said, not struggling. "I've made sure you can't hurt any more children. Those children don't matter. They matter to me, and that's why you'll never understand people like me." Morrison raised his gun toward Emma's head, but Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. "Chicago PD, drop your weapon." The standoff lasted 3 seconds before Morrison made his choice. He released Emma and dropped his gun, finally understanding that the game was over. As FBI agents arrested the 3 conspirators, Emma collapsed onto the bench, adrenaline finally releasing its grip. Ryan was beside her immediately, pulling her into his arms. "It's over," he whispered against her hair. "It's finally over." "Is it?" Emma looked up at him. "Ryan, what happens now? To us?" "Now we figure out what comes after the truth." "And what's that?" "Everything we should have had the first time." As police cars and federal vehicles surrounded Millennium Park, Emma realized that some stories didn't end with catching the bad guys. Sometimes they ended with finally being free to write the next chapter. 3 weeks later, Emma sat in a federal courtroom watching Senator Whitmore, Captain Morrison, and Patricia Valdez enter guilty pleas. The conspiracy had unraveled completely once the FBI started pulling threads. 12 states, 47 indictments, over $200 million in stolen federal education funds. "How does it feel?" Agent Chan asked as they left the courthouse. "Like I can finally breathe," Emma said honestly. The media circus had been intense. "Teacher rises from the dead to expose federal corruption" was the headline that had made national news. Emma's story, the attempted murder, the memory loss, the 6-month investigation under a false identity, had captivated the country. But what mattered most was sitting beside her in the government sedan, Ryan, who'd been cleared of any wrongdoing and offered a promotion to head the new Public Corruption Task Force. "Have you decided?" he asked as they drove toward their hotel. Emma looked at the job offer letter in her lap. The Department of Education wanted her to lead a new oversight division, specifically focused on preventing the kind of fraud she'd uncovered. "It's a bad offer," she said. But it would mean moving to Washington, and I don't know if I'm ready to leave Chicago." "Why not?" Emma met his eyes. "Because this is where I fell in love, twice, with the same man." Ryan pulled the car over, turning to face her. "Emma, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped. "What?" "I've been offered the DC position too, Assistant Director of Federal Criminal Investigations." "Ryan." I turned it down. "Why?" "Because I'd rather be Detective Nash in Chicago with you than Assistant Director Nash in Washington without you." Emma felt tears building. "You can't sacrifice your career for me." "I'm not sacrificing anything. I'm choosing what matters most." "What if I took the Washington job?" "Then I'd call them back and accept their offers so fast it would make your head spin." Emma laughed through her tears. "So we're both willing to rearrange our lives for each other?" "Apparently. That's either very romantic or very codependent. Why can't it be both?" Emma looked at the man who'd saved her life, protected her identity, and loved her through every version of herself she'd been. "Washington it is then." "Really?" "Really." "But Ryan?" "Yeah? I want to get married first, here in Chicago, where we fell in love the first time and figured out how to do it right the second time." Ryan's smile was brighter than the afternoon sun. "Is that a proposal, Miss Rodriguez?" "It's a demand, Detective Nash." "Well, when you put it like that." Ryan reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "I was hoping you'd say something like that." Emma stared at the ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. "How long have you been carrying that around?" "Since the day after the arrests."
I figured if we could survive attempted murder, federal conspiracies, and memory loss, we could probably handle marriage. Probably. Definitely. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger. Emma Claire Rodriguez, will you marry me? For real this time? With no lies, no false identities, no one trying to kill us? Yes, but I have one condition. Name it. When we have kids someday, we tell them the whole story. How we met, how we lost each other, how we found each other again. All of it. Even the part where their mother faked her own death? Especially that part. Someone should know that sometimes love means protecting people even when they don't understand why. Ryan kissed her then, right there in the front seat of a government sedan parked on a random Chicago street, and it tasted like promises kept and futures built on truth. That evening, they had dinner with Agent Chen, who'd become a friend during the investigation's aftermath. Any regrets? Sarah asked over wine. About exposing the corruption? None, Emma said firmly. About the 6 months you lost? Emma looked at Ryan, thinking about everything they'd been through. No, I needed to forget Emma Claire to become strong enough to fight for her, and Ryan needed to love someone he thought he couldn't have to understand what love really means, which is that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones where you have to fight for each other twice. Ryan squeezed her hand under the table. Besides, we got a pretty good story out of it. Are you planning to write a book? Sarah asked. Already started, Emma smiled. Working title, How I Solved My Own Murder and Fell in Love with My Detective. Catchy. I thought so. As they walked home through the Chicago streets where their story had unfolded, Emma realized that some mysteries weren't meant to be solved quickly. Some truths took time, patience, and the willingness to trust that love could survive even the most impossible circumstances. Emma, Ryan said as they reached their new apartment, the one they'd chosen together, with both their names on the lease. Yes, I love you. All versions of you, past, present, and future. Even if I decide to become a completely different person again, especially then. Though maybe next time, let's plan it together. Deal. But Ryan, yeah, I'm pretty happy being exactly who I am right now, which is Emma Claire Rodriguez, soon to be Emma Claire Nash, federal corruption investigator, survivor, and the woman who gets to spend the rest of her life with her favorite detective. I love the sound of that. Which part? All of it, but especially the rest of her life part. When they kissed goodnight in their shared apartment, surrounded by case files and wedding planning books and the comfortable chaos of two people building a life together, Emma knew that some love stories were worth dying for, but the best ones were worth living for. 6 months later, Emma stood in the bathroom of their Washington, D.C. apartment, staring at a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 pink lines stared back at her, confirming what she'd suspected for weeks. Emma? Ryan called from the kitchen. Coffee's ready. She tucked the test into her robe pocket, mind racing. They'd been married for 4 months, settled into their new jobs for 3. Life was finally stable, predictable, safe. And now this. Coming, she called back, trying to keep her voice normal. Ryan was at the kitchen counter, already dressed for work in his federal agent attire. As Assistant Director of Criminal Investigations, he looked every inch the serious law enforcement professional. But when he smiled at her over his coffee mug, he was still the detective who'd fallen in love with her twice. Big day today, he said, handing her a cup. The Peterson embezzlement case goes to grand jury. Emma tried to focus on conversation, but her mind was stuck on the test in her pocket. You okay? You seem distracted. Just tired. The corruption task force has been working overtime on the Texas case. Ryan studied her face with those detective instincts that never quite turned off. Emma, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's actually... She paused, realizing this was the moment. Ryan, sit down. Why? You're scaring me. Sit down. Ryan sat at their small kitchen table, watching as Emma pulled the pregnancy test from her pocket and placed it in front of him. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked up at her with wonder and terror in equal measure. Is this? Positive. Very positive. You're pregnant. I'm pregnant.
Ryan stood up slowly, reaching for her with gentle hands. How do you feel about it? Terrified, thrilled, completely unprepared. Emma leaned into his embrace. How do you feel about it? Like I want to cry and call in sick and take you to the doctor and buy baby furniture all at the same time. Emma laughed, feeling some of her anxiety ease. So, good terrified or bad terrified? Good terrified, great terrified. Ryan pulled back to look at her. Emma, we're going to have a baby. I know, I'm the one peeing on sticks at 6 a.m. Our baby is going to have the most insane origin story of any kid in history. What do you mean? Think about it. Well, sweetie, Mommy and Daddy met when Daddy was investigating Mommy's fake murder. Then Mommy fell in love with Daddy while pretending to be someone else. Then we exposed federal corruption together and moved to Washington where you were conceived. Emma burst out laughing. When you put it like that, it does sound a little crazy. A little? Emma, our love story involves amnesia, false identities, attempted murder, and federal conspiracies. This kid is going to think bedtime stories are supposed to include FBI raids. Maybe we'll tell them the Disney version. What's the Disney version? Once upon a time, a princess lost her memory. A brave knight helped her remember who she was, and they lived happily ever after. That's not nearly as interesting as the real version. Emma looked at the man who'd become her partner in every sense of the word. Ryan, are we ready for this? Really ready? I don't think anyone's ever really ready. But Emma, if we can survive everything we've been through, we can definitely handle a baby. A baby who's going to grow up with parents who work in federal law enforcement. A baby who's going to grow up knowing that truth matters, that justice is worth fighting for, and that love can survive anything. Emma felt tears building, happy tears, overwhelmed tears, grateful tears for a life she'd never expected to have. I love you, Ryan Nash. I love you too, Emma Nash, both of you. That evening, they sat on their couch surrounded by pregnancy books, baby name websites, and the comfortable panic of two people whose lives had just changed forever. Boy or girl? Ryan asked, his hand resting on Emma's still flat stomach. Too early to tell. Do you have a preference? Healthy. Everything else is just details. Good answer. Emma curled against his side. Ryan? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For saving my life. For protecting me when I couldn't protect myself. For loving me enough to let me be whoever I needed to be. Thank you for trusting me enough to come back. For being brave enough to fight for justice. For making me believe that some things are worth the risk. Even when the risk was losing everything, especially then. As they sat together planning for a future they'd never expected to have, Emma realized that some love stories didn't end with the wedding, or even with catching the bad guys. The best love stories just kept beginning, over and over, with each new chapter they chose to write together. Emma, Ryan said sleepily, Our kid is going to be so loved. How do you know? Because they're going to have parents who know exactly how precious life is, who know that every day together is a gift, and who know that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most impossible circumstances. Exactly. When Emma drifted off to sleep that night, her hand resting over the tiny life growing inside her, she thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a hospital bed with no memory, to a marriage built on truth, to a family they were about to start together. Some mysteries took time to solve, but the mystery of whether love could survive anything, that one had a definitive answer. Yes, if you were brave enough to fight for it. And Emma Claire Nash had never been afraid of a fight. 1 year later, Emma stood in the nursery of their DC home, holding 6-month-old Sophia Nash, while Ryan finished assembling the new crib they'd somehow already outgrown. She's got your stubborn streak, Ryan said, wrestling with the instruction manual. Refuses to sleep unless someone's holding her. She's got your detective instincts, always watching, always analyzing. Emma looked down at their daughter's bright eyes, a perfect blend of both parents. I think she's trying to solve the mystery of why Daddy can't follow simple directions. These instructions are in Swedish.
Or possibly hieroglyphics. Emma laughed, feeling the deep contentment that had settled into their lives.
The chaos of the first months, sleepless nights, endless feedings, the overwhelming love that came with being responsible for another human being had given way to a rhythm that felt like home. "Ryan, we need to talk about something." He looked up from the crib pieces scattered across the floor. That tone usually means trouble. "Good trouble. I got a call today from Chicago." "About what?" "They want to name the new elementary school after me, the one they're building with the recovered federal funds." Ryan set down his screwdriver. "Emma, that's incredible." "The Emma Claire Rodriguez School for Special Education. They want us to come for the dedication ceremony next month." "How do you feel about that?" Emma looked out the window at the DC skyline, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. "Like, maybe it's time to go home. Not permanently, just to see how it feels. And if it feels right, then maybe we consider the offer." "What offer?" Emma smiled mysteriously. "The one I haven't told you about yet. Chicago PD wants you to head their new public corruption unit, and the school district wants me to design their financial oversight program." Ryan stared at her. "They want us to come back? They want the team that exposed the biggest education fraud in federal history to help make sure it never happens again." "What did you tell them?" "That I needed to discuss it with my partner." Ryan stood up, crossing to where Emma stood with their daughter. "What do you want to do?" "I want Sophia to grow up knowing where her story began. I want her to see the school that was built because her parents refused to let corruption hurt children. I want her to understand that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even if it means giving up our DC careers. We're not giving up anything, we're choosing what matters most." Ryan looked at their daughter, then at Emma. "Chicago it is." "Really?" "Really, but I have one condition." "What's that?" "We buy a house with a yard and a garage where I can actually fix things without the neighbors complaining." "Deal, but I have a condition too." "Name it." "We tell Sophia the whole story when she's old enough. All of it. The corruption, the fake death, the investigation, the way we found each other twice." "Why?" "Because she needs to know that love isn't just about the easy moments. It's about choosing each other when things get complicated, when the truth is scary, when doing the right thing costs you everything." Ryan kissed Emma's forehead, then Sophia's. "She's going to have the most incredible bedtime stories. Better than fairy tales? The best stories are the true ones." 3 months later, they stood in the auditorium of the Emma Claire Rodriguez School for Special Education, watching as the principal unveiled the plaque that would hang in the main hallway. "Dedicated to Emma Claire Rodriguez, whose courage in exposing corruption ensured that every child receives the education they deserve. Sometimes the greatest heroism comes from refusing to stay silent." "Mama!" Sophia babbled from Emma's arms, reaching for the shiny plaque. "That's right, baby girl," Emma whispered. "That's Mama's name, and someday, when you're old enough to understand, I'll tell you why it's up there." After the ceremony, they walked through the halls of the school that had been built with recovered funds. Children with special needs were getting the resources they'd always deserved. Teachers had the support they needed. The corruption that had once stolen from the most vulnerable had been replaced with transparency and accountability. "Any regrets?" Ryan asked as they headed home to their new house, complete with yard and garage just as he'd requested. "Just one," Emma said. "What's that?" "That it took me losing my memory to find the courage to fight." "You always had the courage, you just needed the right circumstances to use it. And the right partner to fight alongside. We make a good team. The best." That evening, as they put Sophia to bed in her new nursery, the same room that would someday hold the books where they'd written down their story for her to read, Emma realized that some journeys came full circle in the most beautiful ways. "Emma," Ryan said as they stood watching their daughter sleep. "Yeah? I love our life. All of it, even the crazy parts, especially the crazy parts. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Here being home, finally, completely home." Emma looked around the nursery of their Chicago house, at the man who'd saved her and loved her and built a life with her, at the daughter who represented everything good that had come from their impossible love story. "You know what I realized today," she said. "What's that?" "We're not just Emma and Ryan anymore.
We're a family that started with the worst possible circumstances and ended up with the most beautiful life. Think Sophia will be proud of us when she learns the whole story? I think she'll understand that sometimes the most important fights are the ones that happen when no one's watching, and that sometimes love means being willing to lose everything to protect what matters most. And what matters most? Emma smiled, looking at their sleeping daughter. Truth, justice, family, love. In that order, all at once, always all at once. When they finally went to bed that night in their Chicago home, Emma Nash fell asleep thinking about the teacher who'd discovered corruption, the woman who'd lost her memory, the journalist who'd investigated her own death, and the mother who got to raise a child in a world made slightly better by their refusal to stay silent. Some love stories began with meet-cutes and ended with weddings. The best love stories began with courage and never really ended at all. They just kept growing, one choice at a time, into something beautiful and lasting and true. 5 years later, Emma stood in the garden behind their Chicago home, watching Sophia chase butterflies while baby Marcus napped in his stroller. The memorial garden she'd planted held flowers for every victim of the corruption they'd exposed: Dr. Foster, the whistleblowers who died before her, the children who'd suffered because of stolen funds. "Mama, look!" Sophia ran over with a monarch butterfly resting on her finger. "It's not scared of me." "That's because you're gentle with it," Emma said, kneeling to her daughter's level. "When you treat something precious with care, it knows it's safe. Like how Daddy treats you." Emma's heart squeezed. Exactly like that. Ryan appeared in the doorway, still in his work clothes but already loosening his tie. As head of Chicago's public corruption unit, he'd helped clean up the department that had once tried to cover up her murder. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. "How are my favorite people?" he asked, swooping Sophia into a hug. "Daddy, I made friends with a butterfly." "Did you? What did you talk about?" "I told it about how you and Mama are heroes who save people." Emma and Ryan exchanged glances over their daughter's head. They'd started telling Sophia age-appropriate versions of their story. The simplified version, where Mama had to hide from bad people and Daddy helped her catch them. "Are we ready for tonight?" Ryan asked quietly. Tonight was the premiere of the documentary about their case, Rising from Ashes, the Emma Rodriguez story. It had been 2 years in the making, and Emma was still nervous about seeing her life played out on screen. "As ready as anyone can be to watch actors pretend to be you," Emma said. "Did they get my good side?" "You don't have a good side. You have 2 great sides." Sophia giggled. "Mama thinks Daddy is handsome." "Mama is very smart," Ryan said, kissing Emma's temple. The theater was packed with familiar faces: Agent Chen, now head of the FBI's Public Corruption Division, Tom Stevens, who'd testified at multiple trials, former students from Lincoln Elementary, now in high school, and dozens of families whose lives had been changed by the recovery of stolen education funds. As the documentary began, Emma watched their story unfold on screen: the corruption scheme, the attempted murder, the amnesia, the investigation, the love story that had developed in the midst of danger and deception. "Weird seeing someone else play you," Ryan whispered. "Weirder seeing our life turned into entertainment." But as the film progressed, Emma realized it wasn't just entertainment, it was education. The documentary didn't sensationalize their story. It showed the real impact of corruption on vulnerable communities, the courage required to speak truth to power, and the love that had sustained them through everything. When the credits rolled, the audience gave a standing ovation. But Emma's favorite moment came during the Q&A afterward, when a teenage girl raised her hand. "Miss Rodriguez, what would you tell other people who discover corruption but are afraid to report it?" Emma looked out at the audience, thinking about the scared teacher she'd once been, the woman who'd lost everything and found herself, the mother who now had everything worth protecting. "I'd tell them that fear is normal. Fear means you understand the stakes. But I'd also tell them that some things are more important than fear. Justice is important. Truth is important. And the people who suffer when we stay silent, they're the most important of all. What if reporting corruption costs you everything? Then you find out what you're really made of. And if you're lucky, you find out that some things,
Love, family, integrity can't be taken away from you unless you give them up. After the screening, they walked home through their neighborhood, Sophia riding on Ryan's shoulders while Marcus slept in his stroller. Any regrets? Ryan asked, the question that had become their tradition after every major milestone. About tonight? None. About our whole story? None. Emma looked up at the stars, barely visible through the city lights. Every terrible thing that happened led us here, to this life, this family, this chance to make a difference. Think Sophia and Marcus will be proud of their parents' story when they're older? I think they'll understand that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose love over fear. And that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones where you have to save each other. We did save each other, didn't we? Multiple times. They reached their front door, and Ryan fumbled for his keys while balancing Sophia. Inside, their house was warm and lived in, filled with photos documenting their journey from that first coffee shop meeting to tonight's documentary premiere. As they put the children to bed, Emma caught sight of herself in Sophia's mirror. The face looking back at her was older, more confident, marked by experience but not hardened by it. The scared teacher who'd stumbled onto corruption was gone. The woman with amnesia searching for her identity was gone too. What remained was Emma Claire Rodriguez Nash, mother, corruption fighter, survivor, and the woman who'd learned that love could indeed conquer anything, as long as you were brave enough to fight for it. Emma, Ryan said as they settled into bed. I love our life. All of it. The messy beginning, the complicated middle, the beautiful now. Even the parts where we almost died? Especially those parts. They're what made us who we are. Emma curled against his side, listening to the steady heartbeat that had become her favorite sound. Ryan? Yeah? Thank you for loving me back to life. Thank you for being worth saving. Twice. As many times as it takes. As Emma drifted off to sleep in the arms of the man who'd pulled her from flames and loved her through two identities, she thought about the children sleeping down the hall who would grow up knowing that love was worth fighting for, truth was worth risking everything for, and sometimes the best love stories were the ones where you had to lose yourself completely to find out who you really were. Some mysteries are solved with evidence and logic. Others are solved with courage and love. The greatest mystery of all, whether two people can find each other across lies, loss, and seemingly impossible circumstances, has the most beautiful answer. Yes, if they're brave enough to keep choosing each other, no matter what. True love doesn't just survive the impossible, it uses the impossible to become something stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than either person could have imagined alone.
Your heart knows the way. Subscribe and follow the beauty.